I am Mike Husnick.
And I'm Dawn Husnick.
And we are newly appointed missionaries to Taiwan through TEAM, which is the Evangelical Alliance Mission. Dawn and I want to take this opportunity to share with you who we are, what Christ has done in our lives, and the incredibly exciting opportunities that await us in Taiwan.
About 5 years ago, Mike and I began to feel God calling us to a more missional life. We started to pray and take steps of faith and align ourselves more with God's will. Mike then at that time began to feel a prompting to adopt a boy from China. So we started praying about that, and through some open doors and some mountains that God moved, in September 2005 we brought home Sammy from an orphanage in China. And while we were there, our hearts were just broken for the orphans and youth, especially at Sammy's orphanage. We both at that time felt that God was calling us to an even deeper faith journey. When we got home, we began to pray more about that, what that would look like for us. We began to feel this call to missions, and we began to explore that.
Going back and visiting Sammy's orphanage really affected me. I was reading a book recently by Bill Hybels. He coined the phrase Popeye moment in his book, where it really talks about when people get to that point in their lives. As Popeye says it, that's all I can stand, I can't stand no more. And seeing the orphanage and seeing the children that had nobody to call mom, nobody to call dad, nobody to hug them, nobody to put them to bed at night. And when I was leaving the orphanage, I really had my Popeye moment when I had 7 or 8 children hanging on my leg, and they were all saying the same phrase. I didn't really know what they were saying, and one of the translators said that they were all wanting to come with me, and it was really more than my heart could take at that moment. And I think I knew right then, as I closed the door to that orphanage, that I was definitely not going to be in direct mail advertising the rest of my life, which is what I do for a living.
When we returned home from China, Mike and I both knew that we had been changed and we could not go back to our lives as usual. We began to pray, investigate missions agencies, and met with our pastor. We met with some missionary friends and began to pray about going into full-time missions. We began to take steps of faith. We sold our house, moved into a rental, and just freed ourselves up to see what God had in store for us. We investigated the Evangelical Alliance Mission and began to pray about where in Asia God might be calling us, and an opportunity for us in Taiwan opened up.
So by God's grace, we were accepted by TEAM. So in the summer of 2007, Dawn and I decided to dedicate 10 days to travel, take a vision trip to Taiwan, check out the different ministries going on, meet the missionaries, and we just wanted to give you a little bit of flavor of what we experienced when we were in Taiwan.
The one thing that really struck us while we were in Taiwan was the spiritual darkness there. Broke our hearts to see people live without hope, people enslaved to Buddhism and superstition, ancestor worship, especially the youth. We felt that there was such an openness to Christianity in the youth, and they weren't buying their parents' religion anymore, and they were open to things in the West, and God really burdened our hearts for the youth of Taiwan.
We were really taken by just how open and how curious the youth were. Very interested in the Western way, and one of the things that I really took away from the trip was just one of the ministries we looked at was the camp there. Right now it's only 2 acres. It's a couple dorm rooms and a few patches of grass with a climbing wall. It's kind of a stretch to call it a camp right now. But when you talk to all the missionaries there, you see their eyes light up when they talk about the camp, because it is so successful in teaching the youth there about God, about Jesus. And like I said, they are very, very open to it. So what was really exciting when we were there was we actually got to walk through the new tract of land that they plan on and are very close to purchasing. It's 25 or 30 acres up in the mountain. And what they want to do is they want to take that concept they have now where they're bringing in 50 kids at a time, and they want to just magnify it up in the mountains and able to bring hundreds of kids up there at a time. So rather than ministering to these kids like they are now in these huge dorm rooms, 25, 30 kids to a dorm, they want to build dozens of cabins on the side of this mountain and really disciple to them and put maybe 6, 8 kids to a cabin and bring hundreds of kids into this camp at a time. So as we were walking through this land, we caught the vision that the other missionaries have there. We saw firsthand the ripe harvest that God has waiting there for the youth. And it is their vision and it's our vision for it to start with the youth, and just the flame of the gospel to start from the youth, from that camp, and just explode across the island. It was on the plane coming back from Taiwan when we were praying and about the vision trip, and I was looking through my Bible, and Romans 12:1 just kept coming back to me. Therefore I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercies, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. But it's the last part of that verse that really struck me, where Paul wasn't really calling it this grand thing to do or this noble thing to do. He tells us it's the reasonable thing to do.
So as we look forward, we just want to take this time to share with you that God has put on our hearts that He has gone before us and is raising up small groups, churches, and individuals that will partner with us in prayer and financial support. We would love the opportunity to meet with you and share our vision in greater detail, and just to share a little bit more about what God has put on our hearts for Taiwan.